The sun was shining brightly over Riverside High School, and the hallways were buzzing with excitement. It wasn't a regular day. Posters were hanging on every wall, colorful and full of energy. Big letters read, Riverside Annual Talent Show this Friday night. Every year this event brought the entire school together. Some came to perform, others came just to watch and cheer, and a few came to laugh at the awkward performances. But one thing was for sure, everyone talked about it for weeks afterward. That morning, a group of students gathered around the notice board where the sign-up sheet was posted. Laughter filled the air as people joked about what kind of acts they would do. Among the crowd stood Ryan, one of the most well-known boys in school. He wasn't the smartest or the most athletic, but he had a charm that made people like him instantly. He was funny, confident, and always the loudest in the room. Ryan and his friends were teasing each other about who would win the show this year. "Come on, we've got this in the bag," one of them said. "We'll do something wild, like a dance-off or a comedy skit." Ryan smirked. "We could just walk on stage and wave, the crowd would still cheer for us." Everyone laughed. That was the kind of confidence Ryan had, maybe too much of it. As the group continued laughing, a quiet girl walked down the hallway, hugging her books close to her chest. Her name was Lena. She wasn't the kind of person who stood out. She didn't dress fancy or talk loudly. Most of the time she kept to herself. Some students barely noticed her, but those who did knew she was kind and polite. Ryan noticed her, walking by and being in his playful mood called out, "Hey, Lena." She stopped, a little surprised. He rarely spoke to her, and the way he said her name made everyone turn to look. "Are you joining the talent show too?" Ryan asked with a teasing grin. Lena blinked, unsure how to respond. "No, I wasn't planning to," she said softly. Ryan chuckled and leaned against the wall. "Oh, come on, you should. Let's see if you can even stand on stage without shaking." His friends laughed loudly. It was meant as a joke, nothing cruel, but the laughter that followed made Lena's cheeks turn red. For a second, she just stood there looking at Ryan. Then she smiled, a small, polite smile, and said quietly, "Maybe I will." She walked away calmly, leaving the boys still laughing. "Relax, man," one of Ryan's friends said. "You probably scared her off." Ryan shrugged. "I was just joking. She knows that." But deep down, he didn't feel completely right about it. Something about her calm answer stayed in his mind. That evening, Lena sat alone in her living room. The house was silent except for the sound of the ticking clock. Her parents were working late, and the only company she had was the old piano sitting near the window. It used to belong to her grandmother, who had taught her how to play when she was a child. She walked over and sat down, placing her fingers gently on the keys. For a few moments, she didn't play anything. Ryan's words echoed in her head. "Let's see if you can even stand on stage without shaking." She smiled faintly, not out of anger, but determination. Then she began to play. The melody was slow and soft, filling the quiet room with warmth. It was her grandmother's favorite song, one she used to hum every evening while watering the garden. As Lena played, the music seemed to tell her something. To be brave, to keep going, to let her heart speak even if her voice couldn't. When the song ended, Lena sat still, her hands resting on the keys. A small idea began to form in her mind. "Maybe I should join," she whispered. The next morning, the sign-up sheet was almost full. Students had listed all sorts of acts: singing, dancing, juggling, magic tricks. Ryan and his group had signed up for a comedy dance routine, confident it would bring the biggest cheers. During lunch break, when no one was around, Lena walked quietly up to the notice board. She hesitated for a second, then picked up the pen and wrote her name in neat handwriting on the very last line. When her classmates saw her name later that day, the whispers began immediately. "Wait, Lena signed up? Is she serious? She's so shy, she can't even talk in front of people. She'll probably back out before Friday." Ryan overheard the whispers and turned to look. "She really did it?" he said, surprised. He tried to laugh, but it came out awkward. "She's probably kidding." But Lena wasn't kidding. That night, while others scrolled through their phones or watched TV, she sat at the piano again. This time, she started not just with music but also with lyrics. She began writing a short song, one that told her story, her feelings, and everything she never said out loud. Every day after school, she practiced in the empty music room. She stayed until it got dark outside, repeating each note until it felt perfect. The janitor would often remind her when it was time to lock up. She'd smile, pack her bag, and promise, just one more day. Her song wasn't flashy or loud. It was simple, honest, and full of emotion. It was about courage, about standing up even when people doubt you. Meanwhile, Ryan and his friends kept rehearsing their routine. Their practices were loud, full of laughter and high-energy moves. They wanted their act to be funny and exciting. Ryan was confident as always. But every now and then he caught himself thinking about Lena. What if she actually performs? He'd wonder. Then he'd shake it off, laughing at the thought. By Thursday, the school was buzzing. Everyone was talking about the big event. Teachers reminded students to be on their best behavior, and students were gossiping about who would win. Some joked that Ryan's group had already won before the show even started. Friday finally arrived. The auditorium was decorated with lights, colorful banners, and a big stage that sparkled under the spotlights. Rows of chairs were filled with students, teachers, and proud parents. The air was full of excitement. Backstage, the performers were getting ready. Ryan and his friends were hyped, joking around and doing last-minute dance steps. They could hear the audience clapping for the early acts. Singers, dancers, magicians, even a comedy skit that got big laughs. In the corner, away from the noise, Lena sat quietly with her hands on her lap. She had already checked the piano and tested the microphone. Her heartbeat was fast, but her mind was calm. When Ryan caught a glimpse of her sitting there, he felt something unexpected. Guilt. She didn't look nervous or scared. She looked peaceful, like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "Hey, are you really performing?" he asked softly, walking closer. Lena looked up and smiled politely. "Yes." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "That's cool. Good luck." "Thanks," she said simply. When he walked back to his group, one of his friends asked, "What did she say?" "She said she's really doing it," Ryan replied quietly. His friend laughed. "Well, this will be interesting." The show went on. Each performance got cheers, laughter, and applause. Then came Ryan's group's turn. The crowd erupted as the boys took the stage. Their act was full of funny moves, silly faces, and energy. They danced to upbeat music, and the audience loved it. When they finished, people clapped and whistled loudly. Ryan grinned, bowing playfully. He felt like a star. Then the host grabbed the microphone. "And now," he said, "please welcome our next performer, Lena." The crowd grew quiet. Some whispered, "Wait, Lena." Others looked around, curious. Ryan stepped aside and watched from backstage as Lena walked onto the stage. She wore a simple white dress, her hair tied neatly. She didn't rush or stumble. She walked with calm steps toward the piano. The spotlight followed her as she sat down. The entire auditorium was silent. No laughter, no talking. Lena took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and began to play. The first notes were soft and pure, echoing through the room like a gentle wave. The sound was beautiful, so peaceful that even the restless students stopped whispering. Ryan watched speechless. He couldn't believe it. The same girl he had once teased now looked completely different, confident, graceful, and lost in her music. She hadn't even started singing yet, but the audience was already captivated, and as the song slowly built, everyone could feel something powerful coming, something no one in that auditorium would ever forget. The sound of the piano floated through the air, soft and beautiful. The first few notes were calm, but they carried something deep, something that instantly pulled everyone in. The crowd, which had been loud and restless a moment ago, became completely silent. You could almost hear the sound of people breathing. Lena sat straight, her fingers moving gently but confidently across the keys. Every note was clear and full of emotion. She looked peaceful, as if the world around her had disappeared. Ryan stood backstage, frozen. His friends, who had been whispering and joking earlier, were now staring too. No one expected this. Not from her. After a few seconds, Lena began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, almost trembling, but soon it grew stronger. Each word seemed to come from her heart. The lyrics were simple but full of meaning. She sang about courage, about standing up even when people don't believe in you. She sang about feeling invisible yet choosing to shine anyway. The audience sat completely still, listening. Teachers leaned forward in their seats. Parents looked at each other, some smiling with surprise. Even the students who usually laughed at quiet people now couldn't take their eyes off her. As the song continued, her voice rose higher, and the melody grew more powerful. It felt like every word she sang carried a piece of her soul. Some people in the audience had tears in their eyes without even realizing it. Backstage, Ryan felt his chest tighten. He remembered the day he had teased her, laughing as he said she couldn't stand on stage. Now he couldn't even look away. His stomach twisted with guilt. He didn't mean to hurt her, but now he understood how much those words had pushed her to do this. When Lena reached the final verse, her voice trembled just a little. Not from fear, but from emotion. It was raw and honest. The last line of her song echoed through the hall like a whisper from the heart. I found my voice when they told me to stay quiet. As the last note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. It was like time stopped. Then suddenly the entire auditorium burst into applause. The sound was thunderous, and the clapping, cheering, even whistling. People stood up from their seats, giving her a standing ovation. Lena looked up, eyes wide. She hadn't expected that. For a moment, she just sat there, frozen in disbelief. Then a small, shy smile appeared on her face. She stood up and bowed slightly, her hand still trembling a little. From backstage, Ryan was the first among his friends to start clapping. His friends followed, their earlier laughter gone. The expression on Ryan's face had completely changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was proud, amazed, and ashamed all at once. When Lena walked off the stage, the applause was still echoing. The host came on, still clapping. That was something truly special, he said into the mic, his voice shaking slightly. Give her another round of applause, everyone. The cheers grew even louder. Lena smiled again, her cheeks slightly pink, and then she disappeared behind the curtain. Backstage, a few students came up to her. That was amazing, one girl said. I didn't know you could sing like that. Lena thanked them softly, her voice still calm and humble. Ryan slowly walked toward her. His friends watched quietly, unsure what to say. When he finally reached her, he hesitated for a moment. Hey, he said softly. That was incredible. Lena looked up at him, surprised. Thank you, she said politely. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. Listen, about what I said before. He stopped, trying to find the right words. I was just joking around, but after seeing you out there, I realized that was wrong. You were amazing, Lena, really. Lena smiled, not in a proud way, but kindly. It's okay, she said. Sometimes we need someone to doubt us. It helps us believe in ourselves even more. Ryan nodded slowly. He didn't know what to say after that. For the first time, he felt speechless. The rest of the show went on, but no one could stop talking about Lena's performance. Every act that followed seemed quiet compared to what she had done. Even the teachers whispered to each other about how powerful her song was. When the final announcements came, the host walked up with an envelope. And now, he said dramatically, the moment everyone's been waiting for, this year's talent show winner. The lights dimmed. Everyone leaned forward in their seats. Ryan and his friends exchanged glances, but even they knew who deserved it. The host smiled. And the winner is Lena. The audience erupted again. People stood up, clapping and cheering louder than ever. Lena froze for a second. She couldn't believe it. When the spotlight hit her, she covered her mouth in surprise. Slowly, she walked up to the stage. As the host handed her the small golden trophy, she smiled shyly and whispered, "Thank you." The host handed her the microphone. "Would you like to say a few words?" Lena hesitated for a moment. Then she took a small breath and said, "I just want to thank everyone for listening. I didn't join to win. I just wanted to face something I was afraid of. Sometimes when people don't believe in you, it hurts. But instead of giving up, you can turn that into strength. You don't have to be loud to be strong." The hall filled with applause again. Her words touched everyone there, even the students who had never spoken to her before. When the show ended, students surrounded her, congratulating her, asking questions, even complimenting her song. Lena answered each one politely, smiling shyly. It felt strange to be at the center of so much attention, but in a good way. Later, as the crowd started leaving, Ryan walked over again. This time there was no nervousness or teasing in his voice. "You know," he said, "you really taught me something tonight." Lena tilted her head slightly. "What's that?" He smiled just a little. "Never underestimate someone just because they're quiet. Turns out the quiet ones have the loudest hearts." Lena smiled, her eyes soft. "Maybe you just needed to listen," she said. Ryan nodded. "Yeah, I think I did." The two of them stood there for a moment, surrounded by the fading noise of the auditorium. It wasn't awkward, but it was peaceful, like a new understanding had formed between them. In the weeks that followed, Lena became a small legend at Riverside High. People talked about her performance in the cafeteria, in classrooms, even online. Videos of her singing were shared everywhere. Teachers praised her courage, and students who used to ignore her now smiled and waved in the hallway. But Lena didn't change who she was. She still walked quietly, still helped others, and still played piano every evening, but now she did it with more confidence, with more light in her eyes. Ryan, on the other hand, changed in a different way. He stopped making jokes at other people's expense. He became more thoughtful, kinder. Whenever someone tried to tease another student, he was the first to say, "Hey, don't. You never know what they can do." Months later, during graduation, the principal mentioned Lena's name in a short speech. Sometimes, he said, courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it's a quiet voice saying, "I'll try again tomorrow." Lena showed us that bravery doesn't need a stage. But when it finds one, it can inspire everyone. As everyone applauded, Ryan looked over at Lena, who was sitting a few rows ahead. She turned slightly and their eyes met. They both smiled, a quiet smile that said everything words couldn't. That day, Ryan learned a lesson he would never forget. Words have power. A single careless joke can hurt someone, but it can also push them to become something greater. And Lena proved that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and unstoppable. After graduation, Lena continued playing music. She joined a local music group, performing at small community events. Each time she played, people would feel the same peace and warmth that filled the school auditorium that night. And every now and then, Ryan would go to one of those shows, sitting quietly at the back. When she performed, he'd remember that moment, the night he joked and she answered not with anger but with courage, because in the end, it wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could stand, sing, and shine, even when no one believed she could, and that's what made her story unforgettable. Not just for Ryan, not just for the school, but for everyone who heard it.